Welcome back to From 9 to Mom.
We discuss balancing the 9 to 5 hustle with the beautiful chaos that we call motherhood. And today we're talking about the boobies, the titties,
You love it. You love
I
this type
love
of
this.
episode.
Yeah.
This is favorite topic.
My favorite topic. But in all seriousness, it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And Catie and I have not been impacted, luckily, by breast cancer personally. But of course, we've all done a walk in support of someone we've known or have had a friend or a family member that's been affected by breast cancer in multiple different stages, right? And we just want to talk about it openly as we approach that demographic.
Yep.
It's happening whether we like it or not. And the landscape is changing a little bit. So let's get into it.
And I feel like one of the things that has shifted, and I know we're not the most integrated to breast cancer awareness or anything like that, so I'm sure everyone has opinions, but something I've definitely noticed is a lot of people talking about early diagnosis and making sure you get your mammogram. And I feel like the messaging's got a lot more direct about that part. So that was, one of the things I took to you all that follow us on Instagram. And if you don't, make sure you go over there so you can participate in our polls. But I just asked, our followers who has gotten a mammogram. And I know that not all of us are at the age demographic that allows you to get a mammogram, but we all have different reasons. 30% of our followers have gotten one, and 70% have not.
Right, well, that's a good amount of people who have done it. I'd be really curious how many of them were under, because normally with mammograms, you're 40. So once you hit 40, and me personally, after the kids, I have dense, sorry to if there's any males listening, I have dense breasts. It's no secret. And because my grandmother got diagnosed with breast cancer, I have been approved to get a mammogram early. So for our listeners who don't know, I'm 38 years old. I got approved when I was actually 36, I think was when they approved me, but I was pregnant breastfeeding, and you can't get a mammogram when you're pregnant or breastfeeding.
Yep.
So I had to wait for all the milk to leave the system, even though some milk still comes out. They said it's cool. But
even now,
but we've been approved to do that. But it's been really hard for me to get scheduled. And I'm also terrified because I hear they squish them like pancakes. But most people don't get their mammograms till their 40s.
Not good old me. If you guys listened to last time, me and Danielle tend to find ourselves in that 1%. We joke. It's not really 1%, but I've had a mammogram already. I'm 32 and a half. Ryan likes to call it out that I'm much older than him.
Wow.
So I got it when I was 30. I was just postpartum with Jack, 6 month appointment. My OBGYN actually caught something, and she's like, I need you to go get this looked at. And that was just during, regular breast exam at my OB. And, everyone jokes that you should do your own, or I know all of us have, husbands that are like, I'll do it for you kind of thing. But you do really kind of have to take it seriously, especially with your body changing so much during pregnancy, postpartum, going into more kids, and
all of it.
You have to really kind of take it seriously. And I just had no idea when she even told me about it, I didn't panic right away, because I just was like, oh, okay, cool. And then of course, after going into all of that, after I was in pure panic mode, because Jack was
panicked for you. I remember you telling me and me trying to keep my cool, because I was stressed out for you. I was like, this is such it's a scary thing to hear.
Yeah.
It's something that you're not expecting at 30 years old, right?
No. And I don't think I caught on to the seriousness in the moment, but I was 6 months postpartum, Jack was still not sleeping, we were in it, at that point. And then all of a sudden it started catching up to me. When I got to the appointment, I went to a imaging center here, and I just remember getting into the waiting room, and then the panic flushing over me. I cried through the entire appointment, because you know how I cry at every doctor's office there is.
Because they've been such great experiences, everything's so smooth.
I have no trauma. It's fine. I should probably talk to a therapist about it. But yeah, I went in, they put you in the pink, top gown, and everyone, I remember texting Ryan, and I'm going to try to pull pictures, because it's funny now looking back that I'm okay. And I know that this isn't funny for a lot of people, but in my world,
you had to make light,
cope with it.
You have to make light of certain things just to get through it.
Well, and it was I'm sitting in a waiting room with 20 women of all, I'm clearly the youngest one there. and just everyone's got boobs out with like a little thing covering them. I'm like, what's going on? Like
it's a strip club.
And it was, of course, during COVID again. So like
Ugh.
I couldn't, Jack or Ryan couldn't come with me. And like, those are things that like me and him are so codependent that like he would come and hold my hand through kind of thing. But he couldn't even come to the appointment. So I did that. I was so scared for the mammogram. I did do research before it, but I really didn't have time. It was like 2 days. They got me right in. And even in that time, I didn't realize like, oh, they're getting me in 2 days. Like maybe this is an emergency. Like what's going on? But I will say from my experience, I didn't think the mammogram hurt. It was a little, it's more uncomfortable, like sitting there with your boobs out, like putting them on a tray to like put into the machine. But like at that point, I was like just off of delivering Jack. I'm like, everyone's seen me naked at this point. Like, let's just do it. So I did that. And they did an ultrasound as well as a follow-up to it, because which I know is they usually do that, I feel like, in the case. And I was so freshly postpartum, the doctor had looked at it and was like, we might need to look around that. So I ended up, it was only, I do have 2 spots that are continually to be monitored. And I'm sharing this where it's a lot of TMI for some people, but I'm sharing this because it is super normal to have a fibroedema, adenoma. I can't even say it, but it's a fibroedema, I think.
Okay.
But it's a non-cancerous, like solid breast tissue tumor type of thing. And it's not painful. It's not like it doesn't move. It just kind of like sits there, and they just monitor it for growth. Sometimes they get bigger, sometimes they get smaller. So just depending on that would be it. I'm at the point where now if it grows or anything like that, I'd have to get it removed, but it's not like cancerous. But I remember doing the mammogram, I had the ultrasound, and then literally right after the ultrasound, they're like, we're going to take a biopsy of it. And then I really started panicking because I was like, holy shit, like I'm 30 years old and getting a biopsy. Like what is going on? And they just went right into it. Like right after the ultrasound, peeled it off. They're like, all right, you're just going to lay here, turn on this, got all the equipment out to do it, numbed my boob. I think that was like the weirdest part, like getting numbing, like you couldn't.
That's very weird.
They had to like dig in there. So that was pretty scary. And then it took like 2 weeks for the results to come back, I remember. And then like, I was just so panicked. I tried to like keep it out of mind, and like having Jack running around at 6 months old, like I was like, oh my God. But then me and Ryan really talked about, we were like, what are we going to do?
Yeah, I totally understand why you'd be having that conversation. The stats say 1 in 8 women. So if you're sitting around a table with 8 friends, 1 in 8 women get diagnosed with breast cancer at some point in their life. It's a real thing. It's nuts. It's, you know, one of those things in the last year and a half of my life. I'm not going to say any names, but there have been quite a few family members or friends who have gotten diagnosed, and they're all under the age of 45. Yeah. And it's been a very scary experience for them and their families. And I could see why you and Ryan, you have to have those conversations, and you've got to think about that. You don't want to, but 1 in 8 is a pretty high number, right? And it's one of those situations where if you catch it early enough, right? Like you were in a stage where you're young, it's early. 99% of like cases, there's a 5-year survival rate or more for like the lower stages. Mm-hmm. So like 99% is pretty good if you take the steps. And like you were saying, like we joke about feeling our own boobs, and there's nothing more awkward than being at the doctor. It's my least favorite part of every appointment, where their cold hands come out. You're in your apron, and they're like, how was your Christmas? Did you guys have fun? And they're like, you know, roping. Yes. But it's part of all of our appointments, because it's so you can catch it early, and there are a lot of things you can do, and not every story is a happy ending. But luckily, the people that I've known in the past year and a half have all are all in remission, or all in a stage of, and some have had partial mastectomies. My grandmother had a partial mastectomy. Some just have had lumpectomies. There's just so many different ways to go about it. But the second, Catie, they told you like, oh, we're going to do a biopsy, that would have been going through my mind too.
Yeah. And then, you know, from there, it was just, you know, they called me as soon as they got it and said, everything's fine. You know, here's what we're going to do. And then of course, you know, a few months later, I put it out of my brain completely and got pregnant again. And then, you know, I was going in every 6 months to get it measured. to see like what was happening. But then once I got pregnant again, they're like, we're going to keep measuring it to just make sure. So then that was a little scary because I'm like, what if it gets like bigger while I'm pregnant and like they want to do surgery while I'm pregnant or something? Like, I don't know. And it doesn't have anything to do with me not breastfeeding. So like if anyone has any negative
concerns about that,
it wasn't anything to do with that. It likely could have even been worse if I did breastfeed maybe. I don't know, somebody that's a doctor can tell me. But we're not going to even go there. But yeah, I just got, when was it? Back in February or March was like the first time they're like, it actually did get a little smaller. And now I get to go every year instead of every 6 months.
Listen, like, when you go back for your next mammogram, like maybe I should, because my office that I've been trying to get an appointment with, it's been a couple months, and you can't, because we're under 40, you can't schedule them online. Anybody else, if you're over 40, go on there. You could schedule it right online and go. I tried to get my mom to go with me, but she's refusing, which is another topic in itself. Absolutely terrifying. But maybe I'll come to Rochester and we could go together. Like it could be a really fun date. Like we'll do mimosas and boobies. Right? Yeah,
I like to see what
mammograms and mimosas. Should we have a party in Rochester?
Should we do that for your 40th birthday?
Yeah, no, let's do that. Let's do that when I come up next. We'll get one of those buses and we'll have a mammogram and mimosas party. And any of our listeners who want to come get a mammogram, you could come and it'll be fun.
It'll be great. That's what you got to do is like make a little bit of light of it, because I'm trying to look at it now. I'm like, awesome. Like I can get a mammogram every 1 to 2 years now at this point. I've been only getting the ultrasounds because they knew what it was, but I'll be somebody that gets mammograms every year, possibly. Maybe I think right now every 2 years until I'm 35. But I'm like, at this point, I'm like, great, early diagnosis for anything. Like I'm in, like now
same. I want I want to know.
Well, I think it's so valid of like that millennial age group, like I think we talked about this before, but like we're the ones that want to know. Like we want to, we're like slightly hypochondriacs, like want to go to every preventative appointment. Like I don't really know a lot of my friends now that are like anti-doctor, like don't want to go.
I don't know either. And I feel like our parents' generation are more along the lines of like, don't know, can't hurt me. Where I'm like, if I know now, I can fix it. And the truth is, I'm looking at stats from the National Breast Cancer Foundation. The breast cancer death rates, and this is so funny, like millennial, like you said, have been slowly decreasing since 1989. And it's all because it's an overall decline of 43% through 2020 is when the stat is through. Mm-hmm. And this is in part due to better screening and early detection efforts. So it's like because people are going and doing this sooner, and the women who receive regular screenings for breast cancer have a 26% lower breast cancer death rate than women who don't have early screenings. So it's or early detection. So it's one of those things where what we're saying isn't wrong. Like it's the stats are showing it, but it's something I feel like we don't think about. A lot of our doctor's appointments, you don't think about it until you're there. We talk about that all the time. Like I wasn't thinking about my amniotic fluid rate until I was there and they were talking about it. Right.
There's so much we don't know.
For us, it's just making sure that we have the conversations, but also sending out like love and support to the people. I do know people who have not had like as successful of situations with breast cancer, and who the impact to their families and their friends and them, obviously all of them, is devastating. And I just feel like it's not fair. I hate that it happens, but men get breast cancer too. So there's been an increase in male breast cancer rates. I don't know what it is, but at the end of the day, it's one of those things where it happens all the time around us. And we take a whole month to like be like, oh, wear pink, donate. But there's people struggling or quietly suffering with this all the time. And kind of theme I think that we've been seeing, you and I, as we do this podcast, is nobody talks about it. How many of your friends know that you went through that experience?
Just my very, very close ones, and nobody knew what to say,
Yeah, they don't, because they've never experienced it.
30. So, and most of them are younger than me. Like they were like, what?
So it's for real. Like that's something we don't talk about. And just from the experiences and the people that I've known that have talked about it, it is open doors for me where I knew I could ask for because of my grandmother, that I could ask and get an early screening usually. And it's only because someone told me I could.
Yeah. And I think that's the most important thing. So to look at our followers, because Instagram will tell us all your ages in most places. Well, so 40% of our followers are in the 25 to 34 age group, which is, I mean, that's 40%, almost half. And I mean, that's the age I was in when I caught something like this and was able to go in that. So I think the message to that group is make sure you're checking yourself and don't be afraid to like say something doesn't feel right, or, you know, make sure, especially being a new mom or like just being a mom of little kids in general, like you forget about things, and like a breast exam on yourself is not like we can barely shower. So like when are you going to do a breast exam on yourself?
When we talk to when we get to the sex therapist part of our guests doing a hint here, maybe we could ask her like how sexy like breast checks are from your husband to you. Like, hey, like
how do you feel? I'm telling you, most of them, but they don't know what to look for. That's the issue.
Yeah, that's true. You got to do it yourself.
Then 30% of our followers are in the 35 to 44 age group. So that's the group that's approaching the age where you'll be able to schedule it. But I think for you, you've had an issue scheduling it because you keep reaching out, and then like they are going to call you back. And I feel like that's a common theme at most doctors' offices right now is scheduling issues.
Yeah, and at this office, I have a feeling it has a lot. I keep putting my then they say like, do you want to wait, or do you want to get, we'll keep your place in line, we'll call you back. But I think because I'm not at the age of, if you're at the age of 40, they'll automatically push you through to the online portal and just have you book.
Yeah.
It's because I'm under. So I bet you it's a very common problem. Like they probably aren't set up for, and they keep saying we're unusually busy right now. We're unusually busy right now. And hopefully that's not an indication that it's a bad thing, but it's one of those things where if something was going on, I would want to know now, or 5, 6, 7 months ago when I started trying to do this, than 6 months from now.
Well, and that's like, it was funny because when me and you decided to do this episode, for anyone that's an Office fan or anything like that, Janet Fisher from Pam from The Office came out with that she had been silently battling breast cancer, and she had just been wearing hats and wigs and like completely hid it. But she had said it was early detection. It was from her routine mammogram that it was detected. And she said that she was so early that it was so much more treatable and everything on it. She's like, even if I had just pushed that appointment 2 months, what it could have done to me. So it's just, once you get clearance to do it, you got to do everything you can to get in and get it taken care of. Check it off your to-do list, you know?
Yeah, it's been sitting there for a while. I definitely got to go in and check that little baby off. So as we head out of October here, I do want to say that Catie and I are going to post some of the places that we took the data from. We're going to post some resources that we were able to find for breast cancer. And we're also going to post some foundations if you're still looking to support via monetary reasons or time, some personal ones that we know people have used. But if any of our listeners, you guys do have a foundation, or you do have a organization that has to deal with breast cancer awareness or breast cancer prevention or anything for people you even know, please share that with Catie and I. We'll post that out too. We want to support any of you. We don't know, 1 in 8 of you, for all we know, have experienced this and you've never even told us, or we don't know. So if you're silently suffering or have in the past, like, our hearts go out to you, but we want to be able to share any resources that you feel are relevant. And we want to support you too.
Absolutely. I think the best thing to do is share all of our stories and keep, everyone in our thoughts, and do the best we can to help where we can. So I think with that, it's time for us to clock out and clock back into the 9 to 5.
Thanks for talking about boobies with us. See you later.
Bye.